Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Iran is claiming it has stopped U.S. warships from entering the Strait of Hormuz. This claim comes in response to President Trump's plan to guide stranded cargo ships safely through the strait.
The president calls Project Freedom a humanitarian mission to help hundreds of cargo ships and their crews escape the conflict. Iran calls it a violation of the ceasefire. Joshua Swanson reports from Jerusalem.
President Donald Trump is signaling the United States will maintain its military force in the region as the war of words with Iran continues.
If we left right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild. But we're not leaving right now. We're going to do it so nobody has to go back in 2 years or 5 years.
Trump's comments come as his administration prepares a new operation in the Strait of Hormuz, where hundreds of cargo ships and thousands of crew members are stranded due to the ongoing conflict. The president says the U.S. will begin guiding ships through the waterway, calling the effort a humanitarian move requested by other nations as crews begin to run low on food and water. The ship movement is merely meant to free up people, companies, and countries that have done absolutely nothing wrong. They are victims of circumstance, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Details of the plan remain unclear, including whether the U.S. will escort vessels or simply provide navigational guidance. The Associated Press reports the U.S. has created an enhanced security area outside the main shipping routes. U.S. Central Command said Project Freedom will include guided missile destroyers and more than 100 warplanes, but did not provide details on their deployment. Iran is warning against any such action. Iranian parliament member Ibrahim Azizi said any American interference in the new maritime regime of the Strait of Hormuz will be considered a violation of the ceasefire. Trump rejected Iran's latest peace proposal, calling it not acceptable, even as both sides continue indirect talks through mediators. Iran refuses to discuss its nuclear program, a red line for the president, and is calling for the war to end in 30 days. U.S. officials maintain the economic pressure on Iran is intensifying.
And I can tell you that we are suffocating the regime, and they are not able to pay their soldiers. This is a real economic blockade.
Meanwhile, fighting continues along Israel's northern border, with the Iranian-backed Hezbollah launching attacks despite ceasefire conditions. Hezbollah MP Hassan Fadlallah said the terror group will ignore any agreements that come from peace talks between Lebanon and Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced an expansion of Israel's air force, reinforcing the country's position as a leading military power in the region as fighting continues.
We are acquiring 2 squadrons of modern aircraft, F-35 and F-15IA. Our pilots can reach anywhere in Iranian skies, and they are prepared to do so if required.
Separately, new findings from the USAID Office of Inspector General link additional UNRWA personnel to the October 7th attacks. 4 more staff members are accused of involvement or ties to Hamas, bringing the total number of suspended or disbarred individuals to 21. Joshua Swanson, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, CBN News senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright joins us now for more. So, Kelly, what can you tell us about what the Navy is planning to help these ships navigate the Strait of Hormuz?
Gordon, good morning to you. There's a lot to unpack here. The U.S. Navy is actually implementing what they call a protective defense umbrella that actually combines direct escorts as well as advanced unmanned surveillance and specialized anti-mine operations to assist commercial ships. In other words, they have some drones that they can actually put underwater to make sure there are no mines there, and they will guide those ships that are in need of humanitarian assistance to get out of the strait to move on to areas where they can refill, stock up, and actually get people closer to home and to their homes, actually, because they've been there since this war broke out.
My understanding is that the crews on these ships are running out of food. I mean, it's become almost a humanitarian mission to get them out of there. Is Iran just turning a blind eye to that?
Well, Iran is turning a blind eye to it, but Iran is also doing it because they choose to do that rather than cooperate with the President of the United States, as well as our diplomatic team, to reconvene in Islamabad to negotiate a true ceasefire and move on with a legitimate deal that would stop Iran from having this kind of belligerent behavior that they're showing and displaying throughout the Persian Gulf, particularly the Straits of Hormuz. The President, as we saw in Joshua's report, putting on Truth Social, stating that countries from all over the world, almost all of which are not involved in the Middle East dispute, going on so visibly and violently for all to see, have asked the United States for our help. And because of that, he's reaching out to help them from the humanitarian standpoint. And he knows that Iran is going to use this and put out more misinformation and disinformation and even try to keep those ships there for basically causing them to suffer, to put a black eye on the United States.
Well, let's turn to the negotiations. Secretary Besson is saying they're literally running out of money. They can't pay their troops. But still, they won't discuss. They won't put the nuclear program on the table for negotiations. And that, in turn, we're now threatening more attacks, more blockade. What's the end game here? It looks like we're into a stalemate.
It is considered a geopolitical diplomatic stalemate at this point, but Scott Besson pointing out that the Treasury Secretary pointing out here that the strategic plus in all of this is to cause economic degradation for the entire Iranian regime. They're not making any money. They're not even able to pay their troops, their soldiers, their people, let alone have businesses run to sustain what they thought they could do. They're not getting any money in, so they can't even provide developments for their military. That is going to bring them to a pause, and from Besson's point of view, as well as the President's point of view, economically starve them by keeping the blockade up at the Strait of Hormuz and force them back to the table to do what many within the Trump administration say is the right thing: capitulate, negotiate, and actually have a remnant that could remain in power. But that doesn't appear to be likely, and the president is really putting the heat on them and putting the pressure on them to stymie them and actually deny them of any economic possibility of regaining any foothold on their Iranian regime.
Well, it seems like a giant waiting game. You know, how long can the troops in Iran go without getting paid? The police forces, everything that stops the general population from rising up yet again to overthrow the regime. At the same time, here in the United States, we've got 6 months until the midterm elections. The Democrats seem to be adamantly against this war, want to stop it today, and I assume on the other side, they're paying attention to those headlines. We've got the highest gas prices in year, the president's disapproval rating, all-time high. Are both sides waiting for a regime change?
You know, Gordon, this is a really difficult time in our nation as the president is trying to stop Iran from having any nuclear weapon buildup, and at the same time is causing, as we've known in the United States, a spike in our gas prices. Many people are now looking at the president saying, you're not doing what we elected you to do, and that was to improve our economy. And now our economy is going south, plummeting, if you will, and gas prices skyrocketing to over $4 a gallon. And many people are now scratching their heads, even on the Republican side, and independent side, independents that were leaning heavily for the president. His approval rating has gone down. He knows this. He's aware of this. And at the same time, Republicans, who have a narrow, thin majority in the House, they're scratching their heads wondering, how do we campaign in the midterms if the gas prices are still soaring and if they're still high and if there's dissatisfaction among the political ranks as well as among the American people? How do we continue to campaign in support of the president and his programs in order to win a majority in November? Democrats are looking at this and somewhat gleefully, actually, stating that this is their their victory, if you will, if the president continues with this. And the president knows this, so he's weighing everything. The question is, what will he do about Iran? Will he return to the table if the Iranians can come back to the table? He wants to do a deal, but he also knows that Iran will try to play him. Iran's watching our politics as well. They're watching our media as well. So will the president listen to others who are saying, finish the regime? And that's what some people are actually in his ear stating, you've got to finish this job so that you can move on, get the oil prices and the gas prices back to normalization. Can that be done between now and November? It's a wait-and-see moment at this time.
Well, let's turn to Europe. The president announcing a U.S. pull-down of 5,000 soldiers out of Germany. So what impact will that have on NATO? What impact will that have with our alliance with Europe?
Well, very little, actually. There are about 30,000 U.S. troops that operate in Germany. The president withdrawing 5,000 troops, and it takes about a year to complete all of this. It won't happen overnight. But it does give a symbolic shot over the bow for NATO and the EU, because they're saying, wait a minute, whoa, what's going on here? The president is actually withdrawing 5,000 troops, even to the chagrin of some people here in America who are saying, no, don't do that, Mr. President, keep our troops in place. But the Pentagon is taking the posture that they're repositioning these troops to perhaps move to the Indo-Pacific, which is also in a very important strategic area as well. The president is also taking he's not happy with the fact that he's had this diplomatic rift with Chancellor Merz of Germany, who actually criticized the United States, criticized the president, and said that basically Tehran was playing us and that they were humiliating the United States. Well, the president took a shot at Merz, saying he should really negotiate taking care of his own country. So here we are. We have 5,000 troops in Germany. I served there when I was in the military, and it's a very strategic, important component of NATO. I do not believe that the president will try to weaken NATO, but at the same time, keep in mind that he's very upset with NATO for not backing the United States in this move to actually take out Iran's nuclear regime. And that is something that sticks in his craw as well. And most notably, the fact that the NATO allies did not assist us in helping our U.S. troops and U.S. Navy and U.S. Air Force in the Strait of Hormuz and helping to clear that.
Well, Kelly, thanks for your insight, and thanks for being with us today.
A pleasure.
For you at home, this is a crucial time, and I'll put a question to you. Is the opposition to the war in Iran an opposition based on the personality of President Trump, the personality of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? I submit that if it were Clinton or Obama or Biden who had started this and said, we're done with this terror regime, we can't stop the ideology, but we can stop the funding. And they've had 5 revolutions in 10 years trying to overthrow this theocracy. Well, let's make this happen so that the world can be at peace. If it were anybody else, there would be unanimous support for it because they are the largest exporter of terror in the world today. Without them, there's no Hamas, there's no Hezbollah. There would be peace, and that would be incredible. It would also show the hardliners, the ideologues, that the theocracy of Islam doesn't work, and you need to have a secular state where people enjoy freedom. If they want to be Muslim, great. If they want to be Christian, great. If they want to be Jewish, great. These are fundamentals for civilization, and you can't have a theocracy. It just flat doesn't work. So ask that question. Is the opposition based on the fundamentals of what's really going on in that country, what's really going on in that region, or is it more based on your opposition to a particular personality? From where I'm sitting, we've got to finish this job. We can't just go in there and say we're going to have a 2, 5-year, 20-year pause, whatever that is, and let them rebuild, because they're going to come back even stronger. So we need to finish it, and we need to have a regime change. Well, here at home, a major victory for pro-life groups after a federal court blocked delivery of the abortion pill by mail. Dale Hurd has the story.
Some are calling it the most sweeping abortion restriction since the 2022 Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. A three-judge appeals court panel has temporarily halted women from receiving the abortion pill mifepristone by mail. The FDA approved mifepristone in 2000, and in 2023, under the Biden administration, no longer required women to see a certified healthcare provider in person to receive it. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Morrell sued the FDA, claiming abortion pills sent through the mail skirted its statewide abortion ban.
After Dobbs, the Biden FDA promptly announced that it would remove the in-person dispensing requirement for abortion pills, thereby authorizing mifepristone to be shipped nationwide by mail.
Doctors in states where abortion is legal mailing pills to people in states where it is not. And the Fifth Circuit ruling has essentially put an end to that for now.
The head of Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion provider, calls this court ruling part of a move to enact a nationwide abortion ban.
It's incredibly outrageous to know that a federal court, once again, is coming for access to abortion.
While abortion advocates claim mifepristone is safe, others warn the abortion pill can be especially dangerous to women who get it in the mail.
The different risks that are associated are bleeding, infection, hemorrhage, need for transfusion, and perforation.
Pro-life groups praise the decision. Alliance Defending Freedom, which is involved in the case, said it prevents pro-abortion activists and doctors from mailing streams of high-risk abortion drugs into states that protect the lives of unborn babies. National Right to Life said it restores in-person medical visits for dangerous abortion pills. Pro-life groups have long warned that chemical abortions have high complication rates and that the lack of in-person medical supervision puts women at risk. Opponents also say mailing abortion pills violates the Comstock Act, which prohibits sending birth control by mail. The ruling is being appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Abortion rights advocates have asked the High Court to put a hold on the lower court's ruling until it can hear the case and issue a final ruling. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, we'll be reporting on that Supreme Court decision, what the arguments are going forward. But it seems to be a matter for women's health, that this seems to be a dangerous drug to take without medical supervision, and to have women show up at emergency rooms because they weren't under medical supervision, just for me, it just doesn't seem to make any sense.